Is this one of the world's most dangerous millennials? Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, better known as MBS. To some, he's a revolutionary who has transformed life in Saudi Arabia, especially for women. To others, he's a butcher who fueled a bloody war in Yemen, and the CIA believes approved an operation to kill or capture a Washington Post journalist who was cut up with a bone saw. Now, thanks to the global energy crisis, the Crown Prince looks stronger than ever, and world leaders are queuing up to get their hands on his oil.
I think the kingdom is in a uniquely powerful position with what is happening in Ukraine.
So what will he do next?
MBS is a very dangerous man who is becoming more dangerous because of the power he's accumulating.
He invited the wealthiest men in the kingdom, along with the world's business elite, to a conference on the future of the Saudi economy, a self-styled Davos in the desert. And a short time later, he used the opportunity to hold many of them in a luxury hotel.
He rounded up the leading princes and the richest businessmen, interrogated them, got them to reveal their banking details. Thereafter, it was very clear that the real only ruler in the kingdom was now Mohammed bin Salman.
Since then, his aggression and repressive behavior have escalated. He has consolidated power around his own court. Human rights groups estimate thousands have been detained. And in March this year alone, 81 were executed.
The government has maintained an extremely tight control of society.
Some are much more skeptical. Khalid al-Jabri says he knows firsthand how brutal the regime can be.
When all you have is a hammer, everybody becomes a nail. That's exactly what MBS is doing. And his list of victims will keep expanding inside and outside Saudi Arabia unless somebody decides to put a check on him.
Khalid lives in America, but his roots are in Saudi Arabia.
I come from a big family in terms of Western standards. I'm the eldest, 6 boys and 2 girls, including Omar and Sarah. They were funny, smart, very, very ambitious.
In 2017, Omar and Sarah were banned from leaving the kingdom. 3 years later, they were seized by the authorities.
There were 20 unmarked civilian cars that showed up with 50 officers in plain clothes that went into the house and basically took Omar and Sarah.
Khalid's father was an advisor to the former Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Nayef. Khalid thinks his siblings' travel ban has been used by MBS to try to pressure his dad to return to the kingdom. MBS has famously been linked to the murder of outspoken former royal court insider and journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was dismembered with a bone saw in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Another weak point is the economy. Since taking power, he has dedicated himself to diversifying the kingdom away from oil, with everything from tourism to flashy eco-cities like Neom.
You see ancient lands. We see the world tomorrow. This is Neom.
But despite the glossy PR promises of new cities in the sand, unemployment is still in double figures, while many of the oil-related subsidies Saudis have traditionally enjoyed are gone.
He hasn't really had much success in diversifying revenues. The kingdom is still heavily dependent on oil and looks as if it will be for the foreseeable future. So what does that mean if he can't deliver? And if you see a rise in economic frustration, there's a huge question mark as to whether that could also translate into political frustration.
So what about threats beyond the kingdom? The most immediate is right on his doorstep, in Yemen. As defense minister back in 2015, one of the first things MBS did was intervene in a bloody war to crush Houthi rebels, who were being supported by the kingdom's arch-rival, Iran. But 7 years on, the Houthis have forced the better-armed Saudis into a ceasefire, which still leaves the kingdom looking exposed.
Well, the kingdom is very vulnerable. Houthis have been succeeding in getting through, although Saudi air defense have improved their game considerably over the past couple of years. But still, the kingdom is a very wide geographic space, and that makes it particularly vulnerable to drones and other projectiles that come either from Iran or from Iran's proxies.
But perhaps the greatest threat to the Crown Prince might be MBS himself. He's shown himself to be ego-driven, aggressive, and impulsive. And perhaps it's only so long before he makes a fatal misjudgment.